For 44 years, Varsity Ford in Ann Arbor has been more than just a dealership. We're a family, proudly serving yours. As one of the top volume Ford dealers in the world, we're proof that when you treat people right, they come back, generation after generation. And now we make it easier than ever with complimentary pickup and delivery for both sales and service. So you can buy or service your Ford without leaving home. Varsity Ford, driven by family, built on tradition.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Gridiron Gang, a Detroit News Lions podcast. Today is Thursday, October 9th, 2025. The Detroit Lions travel to Kansas City this weekend to play the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium in prime time. Do you hear that? We'll work on that. Exciting week, after a couple I wouldn't call them clunkers, but a couple like non-intriguing opponents in the Browns and the Bengals taking care of business games. It's the dog days of the season. I wouldn't call them the dog days. The dog days are more towards the back half of the season. But when it's hard for the players, for the fans to get up for these types of games against the Browns and the Bengals. But we're here. We got two huge primetime matchups for these Detroit Lions before the bye week. Richard, how are we doing today?
Good. We just watched the 6th and 7th inning of the Tigers game where the Tigers just teed off on the Mariners.
Yeah.
So the game isn't quite over yet. So I'm hoping if you're listening to this, I'm hoping for everyone's sake that the Tigers won and that the Tigers held on. Is it over?
It's 8-3 in the bottom of the 8th.
Okay, so if they blow this,
people are going to start calling it the Silva curse.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get Scooble on the mound in Game 5. So things are trending up for them.
There we go. Scooble on the mound in Game 5. Can you shut that?
Yeah, I got you.
Thank you. So exciting week here at Gridiron Gang Podcast. We're going to touch a little bit on this Bengals game. Then we're going to go into a little bit of banter. We're going to talk about, does Jared Goff belong in the MVP conversation? That's a topic that I explored on Twitter earlier this week, argued with a lot of people on the drive home from Cincinnati about, as well as getting some other stuff about Dan Campbell denying an ESPN report, some other stuff that's happening with the team injury-wise, and then we're going to get into, to close the show, this week's game against the Chiefs. Before we get to all that, I am Nolan Bianchi. With me, as always, is my partner in crime, Richard Silva. I felt like we did that part a little bit late. I just asked you how you are. So we'll start here. What's on your mind coming off of this Bengals game?
A couple things. One, how is this cornerback issue going to continue to take shape? We saw it a little bit in the fourth quarter because obviously DJ Reed was not available. And then Terrion Arnold goes down towards the end of the third quarter with a shoulder injury, which we'll get to him in a little bit later in the podcast. So one, how that the secondary shakes out. If I had to guess, it's going to be Amik and Rock on the outside, and then inside will be Maddox. Or if you want to get really creative, I don't know, you put like Branch in the slot, and then I don't know, maybe you feel really good about Lawrence Strickland, putting him back there at safety next to Kirby Joseph, something like that. But I do expect on the outside to be Amik and Rock. That's on my mind. And then secondly, from this Bengals game is Giovanni Manu's play and whether or not he's going to get the start moving forward, should Taylor Decker not be able to play.
Yeah, with that cornerback rotation, something you and I were talking about earlier, or I guess during the game last week, what would happen if Terrion Arnold had to miss a game? Would it be Khalil Dorsey? Would it be Rock Yassin? Well, we had that question kind of answered for us because Khalil Dorsey went on injured reserve today. So another cornerback in that room ends up being on the shelf for a little bit.
Yeah, no, so they're not going to have him. And Terrion, and like I said, we're going to get to all the injury stuff in a little bit, seems more promising, or more, the outlook is better based on what we learned yesterday and today from Dan and Terrion. But he's still going to miss some time.
And we could jump into that right now because I do want to touch a little bit on his performance against the Bengals. I really thought, and Dan Campbell seemed to think, one of his better games in Detroit so far, despite what some of the optics look like on a couple of those penalties. He had 2 more penalties. I know we kind of touched on that after the game, but you look back at what transpired on that day, and you're like, oh, they were locking him down when Terrion Arnold was out there, and maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's not. But Terrion Arnold gets hurt on one of the final plays of the third quarter. I think it might have been the final play of the third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter is kind of when all heck breaks loose, and the Bengals put up 21 points. Jake Browning has a perfect passer rating, 10 for 12, 100-something yards. And so I do feel like some credit does go to him because of the way that they fell apart without him.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Campbell called it one of the better games he's played in a while. I think it was whatever the stat was per PFF, 3 catches on 6 targets for 28, 27 yards or something like that. Couple pass deflections. He did have the 2 flags, one of them being particularly costly because it cost Hutchinson another sack, this time a safety. That's 3 now on the season that Hutchinson has had taken from him. But for Terrion, I thought it was a good game. You thought it was a good game. Dan Campbell thought it was a good game. Talking to Terrion in the locker room today, he thought it was a good game. He said it felt like he was kind of back to who he thinks he is, back in training camp mode, is how he described it, because he did have a really strong training camp.
Yeah, and he was honestly, despite how well the defense was playing for most of that game on Sunday, he was catching a lot of criticism from the fans because, again, it's the penalty that takes away a big play. And the 2 penalties really, like, people just kind of get on him about those penalties, and it's like it's really I'm struggling to think of the word, but it's just one of those things where it's like context be darned what happens on a certain play or what the impact of a guy getting the penalty is. Obviously, when you're a DB, most penalties are going to come with an automatic first down, but the 2 penalties I think gave up like 7 yards of total yardage, so plus the 2 automatic first downs. But I think people just see the 2 penalties and just like add no context to it and just get mad. And I thought his performance deserved a little better.
Well, I think it's probably because of like preconceived notions of who a guy is. And I don't want to say like those notions aren't valid, because he's played like 20 games and probably, I don't want to put a number on it, a lot of them have probably been under the standard of what he hopes for himself, what the Lions hope for him, what fans hope for him. So I think it's that those notions about the type of player he is. So when he does get a flag, it's like, here we go again, like one of those. Versus where I think it was against the Browns, maybe, where Branch gets a flag and it takes away a Hutchinson sack, and then Branch hits Caleb Williams in the head and it costs Terrion an interception. Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, it's Brian. The guy's awesome. Like, who cares?
Flirting versus harassment.
Yeah, like, who cares that Brian Branch had the flag? And who cares? Because he is so good. Like, whatever. Forget that play ever happened. But I think it's just the reputation, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot, in fairness to the critics, a lot of the big catches that the Lions have allowed this year have been with Terrion in coverage. And even as recently as the Browns game, he was getting flagged for penalties all the way down the field and then still allowing the catch. So I'm not going to say it's unfounded, but I do think we've reached a point where people can't separate the forest from the trees. And, you're kind of entrenched in a camp at this point. I feel most fans are. You either like Terrion and think everybody else is being too mean to him, or you don't like Terrion and you feel like everybody else is letting him off too easy.
Yeah.
Also in this game, you did a film review on Giovanni Manu's first ever NFL start. Interesting thing before we get into all that, I asked Dan Campbell today, would he consider moving Penei Sewell over to the left side if Taylor Decker is going to miss extended time? Because I think what you're about to tell us in this film review is that there was some good, there was some bad, but the bad looked really, really bad. And what I'm talking about specifically, obviously the strip sack from Trey Hendrickson, but there was a sack by Joseph Asai at one point in this game where it looked like Jared Goff was nearly going to get killed.
Yeah, I mean, totally just blindsided. Goff never saw it coming. It's kind of crazy he didn't fumble. I think he almost did, and he kind of caught it with like his hips almost like on the way to the ground, pinned it against himself. But
just to tie up that thought real quick,
yes,
Dan Campbell said he would not. That's not really something that is a priority for them.
Right. Didn't quite go as far as saying, I think he literally said, I'm not going to take it off the table, but it's not what they want to do, I think is how he put it.
Yeah.
Keeping the door the slightest bit ajar.
And his reasoning was Penei can play anywhere. That next guy, be it Skipper, be it Manu, is probably going to feel more comfortable on the left side. So just put the less comfortable guy where he's more comfortable.
Right. Which I think makes sense.
Anyways, Cook. What'd you see?
So it's funny, and we kind of mentioned this when we were doing the post-game pod with John. I feel like if this was just a preseason game, or if this was a training camp practice, like a scrimmage, if they had whatever the combo practices, joint practices, with another team, if Manu had this type of performance against the Houston Texans in a practice where the quarterback's not getting hit, the result doesn't matter really on a down-to-down basis, I think you kind of walk out of it feeling okay, and the 2 sacks are glaring. But overall, he had much more positive or neutral plays than negative. But with that said, and again, we said this afterwards, the negative plays, just like it's the regular season now, like Jared Goff needs to stay healthy now. Like it could ruin a season, a negative play from your left tackle, and everything else doesn't matter. It's all for naught. To talk about the 2 sacks, the first one to Hendrickson, talking to Gio in the locker room post game, he kind of added some more context to it, which makes both of them make a little bit more sense. But again, I mean, he said he was asked for his assessment, and he was like, "Well, 2 sacks, and that's not the standard."
Yeah.
The Trey Hendrickson sack, Goff made a check at the line, and you see it on the replay. Gio's like kind of like looking, and I think everyone just gets set, and he never got the call, and he was like, "Oh shoot," and he just kind of lines up. And if I had to suspect of what it was, is I would imagine they probably had a running play called on the first one, because Gio almost like very easily just gives up the corner and is like, "Go ahead, Trey Hendrickson." And the reason I say I think it's probably a run play, because think about it, if it is a run, yeah, go ahead, go get the edge. You're going to overrun the play. I'm assuming that, well, not assuming, it does get checked into a new play. It's a pass, and then Trey Hendrickson sack fumbles Goff, which ends the 3-game streak, by the way, of keeping Goff upright. And then the second sack, the Asai sack, that his explanation for it was that he was too aggressive in his run cell. And that means, like, instead of, you often see like offensive tackles, they'll like do like the kick slide, and it's almost like they're just like going like kind of like sideways backwards, like waiting for the guy to come engage them, versus like a run cell, or I think it's called like a jump set is another way, is like basically the offensive tackle goes and like takes the battle to the defensive end. And you see that a lot on run plays, because that's why it's called a run cell, because you want to like go make the block. He goes, does the run cell, does the jump set, and is just not, I think a common issue for him was, I want to say he was like a little bit stiff, his lower half, and that caused him to be off balance at times. Asai just totally like swims under him, not swims, I forget the word I'm looking, dips under him, and then blindside hits Jared Goff. That was the pass protection portion of it. Those 2 plays stuck out. There was also 2 other plays. He was only credited for giving up 2 pressures, those 2 sacks by PFF. I think the running backs both saved him once. Jameer saved him on one, and then Montgomery saved him on another. I can't say confidently they would have been sacks, because maybe Goff gets the ball out, but I think they would have at the very least been pressures. So I think that's relevant. And he did have good moments. Like they helped him a lot. They with a chip, with a nudge, with this, with that, with help from Mahogany. But
who was fantastic. He was Mahogany was the Lions' highest graded offensive player in that game.
Right, absolutely. But he did have one-on-one opportunities with Hendrickson that he won. There was one in particular that I think of where he just totally like drives him up the field, and he does the run cell again, the jump set, and it works, and he totally just takes him out of the play. So you did have those moments, which I don't know if I would have been confident saying when I first showed up on the beat, if Giovanni Manu got a one-on-one rip with Trey Hendrickson, I think Trey Hendrickson probably would have won 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was
95.
Yeah, 95. The fact that it was, I don't know, I didn't count them up and divide them, but a quarter of them Trey Hendrickson won, which is still far too much. Yeah. But I think that's encouraging. That's the pass game. To move to the run game, it was better. He was a better run blocker. You saw kind of some of that athleticism at his size that Brad Holmes liked. I think of one play. It was 3rd and long. It was like 3rd and 13, and it's a run play from Jahmyr Gibbs for 9 yards. So it didn't get the first down, but regardless, Gio like swims like the defensive tackle that is in front of him. Mahogany handles that, and then he climbs to the second level and pancakes Dax Hill. And you almost think like, well, look at the size difference. Like, you should pancake Dax Hill. But the fact, I think it shows the athleticism, the fact that he's able to get hands on a guy like that. Like, that guy should be able to evade him or avoid his block in open space. And Gio did take him down to the ground. I'm a little bit disappointed. There was a Brock Wright screen that Gio and Penei Sewell, actually some like creative like play design, were the lead blockers. And the throw was quick. I think Goff had to kind of like sidearm it. Brock Wright couldn't handle it. That was really the only other time we would have seen Gio in open space, which I was looking forward to. Like, I literally wrote in my notes, I was like, dang, like I wish this one worked so we could have seen it more. And again, like the pass pro was bad with some good. I think the run game was good with also, of course, some sprinkled in bad. He lost some reps. There was a 2-yard loss by Gibbs that was on him. Again, gets off balance and kind of one arm shoved out of the way. I think it was Chris Jenkins, the defensive tackle number 90 for the Bengals, that did it for him. And I mean that's kind of how I would describe his day in a nutshell. It's a rather large nutshell. I feel like I've been yapping for 90 seconds. Promising aspects, but on a team that hopes to win the Super Bowl, I don't know how long you can survive with, even if it's less than four or less, like, huge mistakes a game. Those huge mistakes could swing the game.
Yeah, and I do think that if they ever got to a point where maybe Decker was going to miss 4 weeks, I do still think that that's probably the prudent move because, like you said, you can be like, whoo, all right, count our lucky stars that Jared Goff didn't get killed that game. Every game you do that, every snap that you do that, it gets a little bit more and more concerning. And to be quite honest with you, we don't even know if Giovanni Manu is going to be the guy this weekend. But I do ultimately think it was good for him to see the live bullets. He's played a lot of preseason over the last 2 years, but at the end of the day, that third stringer on the Falcons isn't going to prepare you like going against Trey Hendrickson is, and just being able to see it, being able to visualize it, having gone through it. And I think Gio is a guy, from what we've gotten to know about him, is a guy who takes like development very seriously. Mm-hmm. And I think that like he really does care about like growing the right way, just based on everything we've heard in these last couple of days. And so that I think is ultimately he is going to be better off for having this experience. And the Lions got out of there with a 13-point win. So
right. No doubt.
And a healthy quarterback.
And a healthy quarterback. That's how I ended basically the film review, where I said, this I think will be good for Gio. Like, not only I remember Jim O'Neill talking about this with Brandon Joseph last year. I think maybe Branch exited the game early. I want to say maybe it was the Seahawks game. Or Kirby did, and Brandon Joseph had to play like the second half, like was the starter in that game. And the way that Jim O'Neill described it is you can learn from your own scars now. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I thought about when I was watching Gio play. Like, he has 61 plays now of actual live, like you said, up against Trey Hendrickson, like a real, like that, almost as best as it gets, maybe as best as it gets. And Joseph Asai, another strong pass rusher to learn from. And I think his growth from day one has been huge.
Yeah, it showed up in that game.
Right, for sure. Because, while he still wasn't consistently starting caliber, I think when he got here, he was really raw. And like
he was playing in British Columbia.
Yeah, you expected that. So I think he's gone, as anyone in this building, I think he's maybe grown the most. And that's not to say he's there, like he's arrived or anything like that. We just went over all of that. But I do think he is doing the classic Dan Campbell arm slanted up, going up.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to categorize this game into like it's so over, we're so back, I think it probably falls somewhere on the side of we're so back. Maybe not all the way, but it's like the dial is pointing like just a tick toward, if 3 o'clock is we're so back and 9 o'clock is it so over, we're at like the big hand is on the 1.
Yeah, I can't really follow that up. So,
do you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so ultimately think that was probably a promising game for him.
Agreed.
I think you watch that game and you go, okay, he's on the right direction.
Yes,
which I think is all you really want to see from him at this point.
Sure.
The Lions' pressure numbers, excellent again in this game, going against a really bad Cincinnati offensive line. Hutchinson had 8 pressures. Obviously had the sack, the multiple sacks that were taken away. Al-Quddin Muhammad had another 6 pressures. It was actually, as of the day we're recording on Wednesday, as of Tuesday, he has now been here for a full year. He has 6.5 sacks in that time. He's got a ton of pressures. He's really been arguably the most reliable pass rusher, not named Aleem McNeil, since he arrived here a year ago. So that's been fun. And just knowing that it's been a full year is kind of crazy, because this is a guy who, when he showed up here, he hadn't played since 2022. And next thing you know, not only is he, becoming an important piece for this team, but he's also playing really well. So I thought that was interesting. Roy Lopez, 3 pressures. DJ Reader, 3 pressures. Tyleik Williams and Jack Campbell and Derek Barnes each had 2. And then Tyler Lacey and Alex Anzalone each had 1. So pressure really coming from all over the place. And that's a quintessential Kelvin Shepherd defense pressure log right there,
sure,
where it's a little bit of everybody. And, these linebackers, they're not just getting 1 or 2, or, they're not just getting one pressure or whatever. They're getting 2, sometimes 3 pressures over the course of a game.
Yeah, no, Jack's been really good. Derek Barnes, I think, since the Ravens game has been really, really good. And then, like you touched on, kind of everyone contributing. Yes, this is, I think, what if you asked Kelvin Shepard and Dan Campbell or whoever, how would you like your pressure numbers to look realistically? Of course, you want everyone with 1 million. Yeah. But Hutchinson leads the way with 7+. He's complemented by another guy, whether that's Davenport when he's healthy, whether that's Muhammad, whether that's Aleem when he's healthy, with 5+. In this case, it's Muhammad. And then you get a couple from the interior, or more than a couple from the interior. Roy Lopez, DJ Reader, and Tyler Williams combined for, 8? And I think that's probably as good as you could ask of that group.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into some other topics here. I was getting in fights in the back of the car coming out from Kansas City, or coming out from Cincinnati on Monday. I'm all turned around. Kansas City, Cincinnati, Sunday, Monday. None of it matters. I saw a tweet. I saw a lot of tweets. There's a lot of posting going on Monday morning that Baker Mayfield is far and away the front runner for the MVP. And I'm just confused, folks. I'm not mad. I'm not upset. I'm just confused because Jared Goff, if you look at Baker Mayfield's numbers, he's having a great season. But if you look at his numbers, Jared Goff is besting him in every category except for yards, which is important. But he has a completion percentage that's 10 points higher than what Baker Mayfield is doing. And just a few weeks ago, it was all Ben Johnson. It was all this. It was all that. The Lions are cooked, yada, yada, yada. And now, all of a sudden, the Lions are tied for the best record in football. Jared Goff is top 3 in every statistical category, essentially. And he still can't get any respect. A new OC, he's proved it's not Ben Johnson. And I'm not even saying that Jared Goff is the MVP at this point. I think there's an argument to be made that he is. But like the fact that he's not even in the conversation is just so puzzling to me.
No doubt. And I said this on the podcast. I remember before the season started. I forget exactly what episode. But I was like, if Jared Goff, not only without Ben Johnson, without Frank Ragnow, like continues this level of play, like we do need to have some conversations. Like, and he's done it. And again, it's 5 games. Like 5 games is not the biggest sample size, but we have since the midway point of 2022 that shows us that Jared is a really good quarterback. And that's continued through these 5 games, despite the losses of Ben and Frank.
My guy, Matthew Collar, we had him on the podcast over the summer. He's a Vikings reporter. I posted this I'm just confused is all. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Because I think Jared Goff is a really good player, a great player. Elite. I would say Jared Goff is an elite player. I put out this tweet just being like, I'm confused by this. And he DM'd me and he was like, I think it's because there's a lot of people out there who just refuse to take back what they said about him when he came over from the Rams and what they said that, as Ben Johnson was headed out the door, because that is like the only way that this makes sense. People say he's a system quarterback. Well, the system was designed through his eyes with a lot of his input. And on a week-to-week basis, that's on a year-long basis. That's on a week-to-week basis. That is all-encompassing. So he is the system. So that argument to me is bad. He has good players argument. Does Patrick Mahomes not have good players? Does Josh Allen not have good players around? You could make the argument he probably doesn't have as good of a receiving corps. I would say he has as good of a running back. Let's deal with that.
Yeah.
I just think like any argument to be made, there's a counter argument against it that is strong.
So 2 points. One, I do think the Lions I would take the Lions' weapons over Buffalo's and the first team you mentioned. Remind me.
I don't even remember at this point.
I do think Tampa's weapons are right there with them. You got Bucky. Bucky's
that's
awesome.
Another thing. The Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have drafted like 6 weapons in the first 2-3 rounds for Baker Mayfield in the last 2 years. They just used a first-round pick on Emeka Egbuka,
who's
awesome.
I was going to say, well, I do think Detroit's offensive skill positions, offensive line notwithstanding, because that's in flux, and that's a credit to Jared Goff for these past 5 games with an offensive line that's been different, that he's still playing well. But the offensive skill position specifically, I would put them up against anyone. But like Jared Goff has, used those weapons to be the most productive quarterback in the league over the past 2 years. So like, it's not like he has them and then is 8th in passing yards and 12th in passing touchdowns. He's like number 1 in like every passing category since like Ben Johnson got here and then has left now. And for these 5 games, I will say I think another argument that could be made, maybe not an argument but an explanation. And I feel like I feel like you wanted to touch on this a little bit, so I won't take it all. I want to leave some for you because Nolan feels very passionately about this. I think a lot of it is everyone talks about superpowers. Jared Goff's superpower is not quantifiable and it's not seeable. We don't know the checks that Jared Goff is doing, and there's no way that we can know. We'll never know.
Yes, and it's no less impressive to do that.
Sure.
So I made this analogy on Twitter because I saw a perfect encapsulation of why he is kept out of these conversations in a tweet right before he walked into the studio here. So it's a tweet from an analytics guy, and it's a graph. And I don't even know, x-axis, y-axis, X goes up and down.
I was going to say Y goes up and down.
Okay, well, one of the axes goes up and down, and it says create rate. Honestly, don't even know what that means. Off script plays. And the other axis, the side to side, horizontal axis, says EPA per dropback. And he says MVP candidates are in the upper right quadrant. So that means to be an MVP candidate, you have to have a lot of production, and you also need to create off schedule. Patrick Mahomes is currently that guy in the upper right quadrant.
Along with some others.
Lamar, so is Josh Baker. Allen. Yeah. That to me is the whole problem. Like like you're saying, oh, he didn't create on that play, ipso facto, not impressive. Yes, he did. He created before the play. You just didn't know that. Like he is out there, he's reading the coverage, and I think I brought this up recently on this podcast, but there's a great clip of Tom Brady, and he's appearing on Steve Young's podcast, and he's talking about today's generation of quarterbacks and how they all get credit for rolling out of the pocket, making 2 guys miss, and finding a guy downfield off schedule. And everybody says, this is the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. But he didn't read the defense pre-snap. So why does he get credit for doing what the first quarterback would have done just by making his checks at the line, setting his protections and delivering that pass in a clean pocket? People don't see it that way for whatever reason, and that kind of drives me nuts. I use an analogy on Twitter, right? Let's say you're in a restaurant.
Okay.
I used to be a short order cook in a previous life. And
Nolan has had a lot of previous lives.
Let's say you're in a restaurant. You got one cook. He shows up on time, even early, every single day. Make sure his prep station is all set up. He knows where everything is, like the back of his hand. He doesn't even need to think about it. When he runs out of jalapenos, he reaches under, he grabs the other thing of jalapenos, puts it in. It's one fluid motion. And even during the busiest rushes, because he is so well prepared, what he is doing looks easy, right? He's just not a lot of movement, just ba-ba-ba. And then you got another one. He doesn't really do any prep. He doesn't know where his jalapenos are when he runs out of them. So then all of a sudden he's got to run to the back of the kitchen while he's firing a sandwich, and he's, filling it up on the fly, and he's still getting it all done in pretty much the same amount of time. But I feel like in this analogy, the cooks who aren't prepared ahead of time and they got to run, they got to jump over here and grab this and put it on the grill. Those quarterbacks are the ones who are rewarded for whatever reason in terms of public opinion of them, when you'd rather have the first guy as an employee, and I'd argue that makes him more valuable.
So I want to point out before I make this next, not even an argument, I'm just presenting an idea to you and seeing what you think. I agree with you. Like I'm in pretty much agreement with you. There are, I think Goff is playing as good as any other quarterback in the NFL right now, period. Up there with Baker, up there with Josh, maybe better than both of them through 5 weeks. But I think an argument to be made is, what would you say? So you have that cook, right? Mm-hmm. He's knows where the jalapenos are, puts them up. I think an argument people make will say that other guy, that when something goes wrong, he's better equipped to handle something going wrong versus the first guy. No, things don't go wrong as much with the first guy. But what happens if when he grabs those jar of jalapenos, everyone's human, he drops them, and the jalapenos go everywhere. And he's not as equipped to handle when things, it hits the fan, basically.
That's a good argument. That's a good argument. But you need a good temperament from that guy.
No doubt.
To be able to overcome that adversity, which I think Jared Goff has a good temperament. I think that's a good counter argument to what I'm saying, though.
Sure. And I will say again, Jared rarely drops the jalapenos.
It's rarely drops out.
It's extremely rare. And when he does, the team is good enough, Houston last year, to pick him up. Like we saw that. You just hope that when you're betting on Jared Goff, that the 95% of the time he does things right, you're hoping that just when it matters, that 95% continues, and you don't get the rare, oh man, it's a bad game.
Yeah, 100%.
With that, we both like Jared Goff. We both think Jared Goff should be in the MVP conversation. Is what we're talking about through 5 weeks.
Yeah. All right. What else we got to get to here before we get to some injuries?
You want to talk about the Dan Campbell ESPN thing?
Yeah. So before the Baltimore game, this is something that kind of flew under the radar a little bit. I think at least probably with a lot of us because we were at the game, getting ready for the game, not really watching the TV broadcast. But Adam Schefter reported on ESPN that the Lions, was it a formal complaint? The Lions made a complaint
reached out to the league
about the number of cut blocks that Aiden Hutchinson was seeing in his return from a broken tibia and fibula in weeks 1 and 2. And then the Lions had this crazy, victory on Monday Night Football, and it kind of all just
Lamar a million times.
Sack Lamar a million times. A lot of other things to talk about. So I think a lot of us kind of just forgot about that to some degree.
Yeah.
And then today, Dan Campbell was asked about, there was that report out there a couple weeks ago, and he said, I probably should have pulled up the quote here.
Before he even answered, the reporter could finish talking, Dan was ready to talk about this. It was almost funny. Not that I think this was weighing on his mind, but it's it popped up and almost activated him. Glad you asked.
Yeah. That's bogus. That's a bogus report. I don't know where that came from. Nobody from here did that. That's bull, Campbell said. Quote, the game's played a certain way. That's the way it goes, man. It doesn't matter if we're doing it or if somebody else is doing it to our guys. We know that and we play accordingly. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah, he is basically football guy. He had another really good football quote, which we can talk about in a second. He basically was and I think it's kind of, you can liken it to the tush push. The Lions not wanting to ban the tush push. That plays in the game. Maybe in the offseason it'll get legislated out by other people, but for right now it's in the game. Cut blocks are legal. Figure it out. Deal with it. Other edge rushers deal with it, Aiden. So we'll figure out ways so that you can deal with it as well. I think that's Dan Campbell's whole thing. Deal with it, figure it out.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I don't really have much to add on that.
No, just that he was very adamant against it. Hutch talked about it a little bit as well. He did say that he thinks that those first 2 games he did get cut a lot, and then he didn't say this, but implying he said those first 2 games he got cut a lot, and then didn't say anything about the rest. If he got cut a lot in those games and then didn't mention the rest, I'm assuming it's gone down. But again, Dan Campbell said it didn't come from the Lions. It could have come from someone else, not the Lions. It could have come from anybody else that's involved in the league.
Yeah.
If it did come at all.
Yeah. The other funny Dan Campbell thing that we got to get to from today. So basically he was talking about Patrick Mahomes and, disguising blitz. Is disguising blitz is even more important against a guy like this because he, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, he can smell a rat from a mile away. If you're going to disguise, boy, it better be worthy of a Grammy.
Which is hilarious.
He meant that's the most football guy ever. He's Grammy, Oscar, Emmy, whatever. Doesn't matter. He give him the Academy Award for whatever profession just so happens to represent acting.
Right. And he was talking about Patrick Mahomes. I don't know if we mentioned that. Yeah, about blitzing and disguising your blitz against Patrick Mahomes. He was It better be Grammy winning if you're going to do it.
Yeah. Funny stuff. All right, let's get into some injury news and transactions to have taken place this week. Quarterback Khalil Dorsey placed on injured reserve with a wrist injury. So he'll be out for at least the next 4 games. That would be Kansas City, Tampa, Minnesota, and Washington. Yeah. So earliest he can return is Philadelphia. Interesting, though, that he had the injury before the game, and, maybe they put him on Saturday?
Dorsey?
Or Monday?
Dorsey?
Yeah.
They put him on today.
They put him on today. So yeah,
Today being
interesting because
Wednesday.
he came down with the wrist injury last week, but then they didn't put him on IR until today. So maybe they could have saved him a game on the back end. But at the same time, maybe he won't be ready in 4 weeks, but that's neither here nor there. Wide receiver Khalif Raymond, he had a neck injury. Scotty Montgomery said the team is hopeful, and Raymond was running around on the side of practice today. I think he was a non-participant officially.
Yeah, because he was out there for stretches, and then when they went to individual periods, he went off to the side with trainers and was running around and doing whatever he had to do with trainers while everybody else was doing the football stuff.
Yeah. Defensive tackle Lee McNeil, who is on his way back from a knee injury. He had his first full practice since suffering the injury in December of last season. Seems like he probably, I don't want to say he's probably going to play this weekend, but they said it was 50-50 last Friday. He ends up getting ruled out, not even a game time decision. But just the fact that they were even considering it, and Lee McNeil has been repeatedly saying, like, I'm ready to play football, feels like it gives him a pretty good chance of playing this weekend.
And the fact that he's full on the first day of the week.
Yeah. He's not having to acclimate himself back throughout the course.
If he is
3 days.
If he is ready to go, what are your expectations for him if they play 60 snaps? How many do you think he sees?
I bet he plays 30.
That's what I was going to say. 25 to 30. Oh, I was going to say 25, 30.
I also, I don't really know if they'll, I can't remember who it was last year who got hurt, and they were like, yeah, it'll be on a snap count. Maybe it was Branch or somebody like that, or maybe it was a D lineman. But they were like, yeah, it'll be on. Oh, I think it was Zadarius in his first game. They were like, oh, he's going to be on a pitch count. Yes. And then next thing you know, he played 90% of snaps.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
So, I feel like there's a chance that as much as they might want to nurse him back in, they might also just say, you're healthy, go play football.
Sure.
Wednesday's injury report, we already touched on a couple of these guys. Terran Arnold, no practice today. Been absolute roller coaster, yes, I would say, in the last
72 hours.
Yeah, so when we last talked to you after Sunday's game, he had left a game with a shoulder injury for the second time in as many weeks, and had just left a game with an injury in general for the third time in 5 weeks and fourth time in 6 weeks, dating back to last year's Week 18 game. In every single one of those games, he was right back out there for practice the next Wednesday and ended up playing in the game the following week. This time, they did not get so lucky. So Dan Campbell on Monday basically saying he's going to be out for a long time, doesn't know if it's season ending, but it doesn't look good, and he's going to be out for a while. Tuesday morning, Tom Pelissero of NFL Network reports that Terran Arnold got it. Was it a report that likely season ending? And then a couple hours after that, ESPN's Adam Schefter reports that Terran Arnold is feeling confident the team is feeling confident after Terran Arnold get back his second opinion. Might not require surgery, could just be some inflammation, essentially, is what we gathered from Dan Campbell today. And then Campbell, asked about the report, says that he didn't want to put a specific timetable on it because Schefter said he could return as soon as the end of this month.
There's only 2 more games this month.
And there's only 2 more games this month, unless he was talking about, and you and I were going back and forth on this in the text thread, unless he was talking about returning to practice at the end of the month and then being ready to play on November 2nd, Week 9 against the Minnesota Vikings when they get back from the bye. I suppose that is possible as well. So we'll just see how that shakes out. But I think by and large, the update that we got from Dan Campbell today was that there's no such timeline that they are on with this injury. But the second opinion did make them a little more optimistic. They're going to try to get the swelling down, and they think they avoided surgery.
Yeah, exactly. That was what I was going to bring up. That's the big thing, that they avoided surgery. And then Terrion talks today in the locker room as well. And he said, first of all, he was like,
no brace, no sling, no nothing.
No, nothing. Yeah, just looking as good as he, normally, whatever. They were actually filming the Lions social media was filming a funny video, which I'm sure they'll release at some point. And Terrion was involved and was moving around and jumping around, so he looked healthy.
Yeah.
But he talked about today, and he said that he doesn't know how many weeks he's going to be out, but he is obviously feeling much better after the second opinion. He said after that first one that he almost cried because he was like, he's so upset and all that. And then the second one was much more relieving or self-confidence boosting, he said. He's in the same boat though, that again, not quite sure when, but we're talking weeks instead of months.
Yeah. Ultimately, mostly positive news on that front.
Yeah, I would say so.
A couple other guys here. Zach Cunningham, linebacker, out today with a hamstring injury. He's been out for a couple weeks. Really unsure of when he's going to be back. We should probably ask Campbell about him.
It was right after the Ravens game that he went down, or first popped up with the hamstring.
Yeah. Taylor Decker out with a shoulder injury once again. Kirby Joseph out with a knee injury once again. Amon-Ra St. Brown.
That's new.
Out with a wrist injury. That is new. That is not quite super concerning just yet, just because it is Wednesday, and a lot of times when you're a veteran and you have these little nicks and bruises as the season goes on, you can kind of get away with not practicing, and maybe it is not as big of a deal as it feels in real time, but definitely something to keep an eye on.
No doubt.
And then the last one, Sione Vaki, still out with a groin injury, so no real update on that. He returned in the Ravens game as well and suffered a groin injury in that game. Haven't seen him back at practice since, so that is something we will continue to monitor. And then lastly here, we got a limited practice safety, Brian Branch, with an ankle injury. That is also new. Nothing real to report on that from our end, except for the fact that there was at one point during the game where he briefly exited. Looked like they put some like kinetic tape is what it was described to me as on his leg, and then he was right back out there pretty shortly after. So
I think he missed one play.
Yeah. Dude's a rock star, and he's also kind of an Iron Man, so we'll see how that goes. Couple more transactions. Offensive tackle Dan Skipper back on the roster, folks.
That's right.
Skip's back.
Dan Skipper is inevitable.
Dan Skipper, death taxes. Dan freaking Skipper. He took Khalil Dorsey's spot on the 53-man roster, and then they signed a cornerback, Arthur Mollett. He takes Skipper's spot on the practice squad. So that is where we're at.
So we now officially have three options if Decker cannot go. We have three options to choose from of our predictions of who we think will fall in that left tackle spot. It's Skip, it's Gio Manu, or it's Devin Cochran, who's on the practice squad. I think we would both pick one of the first two, Skipper or Manu. I think if you made me choose right now, I would say Skipper, but we'll see. And it's also not a guarantee that Decker is not going to play. He could play.
Yeah. I think I agree with you, but there is something pulling me towards Manu in the sense that, honestly, like, I think that you're probably going to get a pretty similar game out of both of them. We saw Dan Skipper start some games last year, and he wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire. But at the same time, he is reliable. You know that he knows what to do on every single play. And so there's that. But on the other hand, if you kind of see them as equals, which I don't really know if I've put enough thought into whether or not they are at this point. But if you see them as equals, you might as well let the one guy develop in there. So there are a couple different ways to look at it.
Yeah,
but
I
think it's between one of those two guys.
For sure.
All right, let's move on to the Kansas City Chiefs. Dun, 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 dun. Let's take a look at the lines. Chiefs are favored by 2.5 over under 52.5. The implied score 27.5 to 25. Are you surprised that the Kansas City Chiefs are favored in this game?
I think I am. I don't know the fact that it's at home for Kansas City. It's on the road for the Lions, obviously. They say that's usually like a 1.5, 2.5 point difference. So Three, thank you. Yeah. So if this was a neutral site game, they're basically calling it a pick'em, a coin flip. A little bit surprised, I think is the way I'd put it.
I would agree. I think if this was a neutral site game, I would expect the Lions to be favored by 2.5, 3.5. So ultimately, not really that big of a discrepancy there. But I do think that the thing that's interesting about it is that the Chiefs are desperate now. The Chiefs, they don't have to win this game because they're so good that they can just rip off 9 in a row to close the season and get in the playoffs. But, the more you keep adding losses to your plate as an NFL team, the more Captain Obvious statement of the century. The more losses you get, the worse your outlook is. So there you go. This is why you guys listen. Thank you all for tuning in to this show where we are just dropping wisdom left and right.
If you lose, you don't win.
Dude.
Couldn't have said it better, right?
You're spitting right now.
I do think maybe outside of the Packers, and Cleveland, all right, the Lions have played some pretty good defenses. I was going to say that this defense is probably as good as any that they've played. Browns are really good. Packers are really good. We saw what the Packers were able to do. But I think I'd put this Chiefs defense, if not better, right up in that same class with those. The defensive front coupled with the linebackers, I think is really, really, really good. The fact that they have a guy on the inside and outside in Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. Karlaftis, by the way, tied with Hutchinson for the league leading pressures with 31. Chris Jones, I think he's third or fourth with like 19 pressures or something like that in terms of interior pass rushers or interior defensive tackles. I think they're scary. I think the linebackers are scary, which we can get to in a little bit here. I don't know if you just want to jump right into it now.
Go for it.
I think that trio of Nick Bolton, it's Leo Chanel, right? And Drew Tranquil, I think that might be the best linebacking core that they've played since Green Bay. And we saw at Green Bay, I remember us talking about this on the podcast, the Lions struggled to run the ball because of the defensive front that they're guys on the defensive line, of course, the Packers, but also because of Edgerrin Cooper, because of Quay Walker, because how athletic and good those guys are and how they were able to avoid the interior offensive line, Mahogany, Glasgow, particularly Glasgow in that Packers game, and Ratledge from getting to the second level and blocking them. You saw them, they were awesome. Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper were. So the fact that now you're getting another really good linebacking core on the road again, where remember they had those communication issues that they talked about a lot at Lambeau Field. When now you're going into Arrowhead, which I think is probably a top 5 environment currently in the NFL. So I'm curious how they handle that. I think that is, I was going to say the key matchup. I also think the speed on the outside for the Chiefs offense versus the Lions depleted secondary is also a key matchup. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. But this matchup, I think, could really swing things.
Yeah, and if Taylor Decker plays on Sunday, like I'm not even like considering the impact of playing on the road and everything like that. Like they've done it. I think they've proven enough to prove that was a one-off, especially with their performance in Baltimore, which also probably in that top 5. But yeah, if he can't go, completely agree with you. I think the linebackers in general, like I think you could probably say this every game. I think the linebackers in general on both sides of the ball are going to be absolutely massive in this game. Obviously, for the reasons that you just listed, the Chiefs. I think it almost applies to the other side of things where you look at that linebacker core and they shut down Lamar Jackson in that Ravens game. The D-line obviously had a lot to do it, but a lot of times it was push comes to shove, one-on-one linebacker versus Lamar Jackson, and the linebacker got it done. Jack Campbell did it. Trevor Nowoski did it. Zach Cunningham did it, where it wasn't quite Lamar Jackson, but it was Derrick Henry on a big 4th and goal. Or the play near the goal line, whatever it may be. So I think the linebackers, you're almost playing the same exact style of quarterback. Obviously, I think Lamar's a lot faster and all those other things, but generally speaking, it's a guy like Dan Campbell said today. They make you pay the same way. They will pump fake you and get you to jump out of your shoes and run 15 yards past you. They'll do all the crazy tricks. They'll make these sidearm passes that you just never see coming. So I think coming off of this Ravens game, this is a really interesting secondary test for the Lions linebackers against a quarterback who still, despite the team being 2-3, one of the best in the league right now.
Yeah, he talked about Dan Campbell. That is talked about with Patrick Mahomes. You're rushing at him. His back's turned to you, and you're like rubbing your hand. And you're like, I got him. Yeah. He has no idea that I'm coming. And then he goes, but he knows you're there. And then all of a sudden he spins, and then the play breaks down. He's making these off schedule throws. He's as good as I think as anyone is doing that. Patrick Mahomes is as good as playing quarterback. Another dude, just another dude. You bring up the linebackers and just kind of the Detroit's defense in general. I can go on a quick sidebar, because talking about how important those linebackers were not only against Lamar Jackson but in the run game, it reminded me. So Tyleik Williams, we chatted with him a little bit in the locker room like last week about, I don't know how much they've shown this on like broadcasts or whatever, but when watching the replay of the games multiple times a game, when Tyleik Williams is getting double teamed, he drops to a knee and then pops back like right back up, and it's like he's like anchoring, basically like, you're not moving me off the spot, because like obviously the goal is to get knocked back and then climb to the linebacker. Let's say it's Jack Campbell. They want to combo block Tyleik, push him off a spot, and then someone go get Jack. And now the running back has a lane, and then it's one on blocker here, blocker there, onto defenders. And then Tyleik, though, when he anchors, it's supposed to like hold the second offensive lineman long enough so that Jack can just go make the play. And you've seen that a couple times. I thought it was interesting talking to Tyleik about that. where, because I had never seen it before, and not that I've been like intently watching football enough to see how many defensive tackles in the league drop to one knee when they're getting double teamed. I can't tell you how many do, but Tyleek's the first one I've seen do it consistently. And it was actually funny when he did it against the Falcons in the preseason. I was watching it. I was like, oh, he did that by accident, and it worked out for him. Look at that. Like, I was like, wow, he fell, and it worked.
Yeah.
But Tyleek told us that one that was taught to him at Ohio State, and not only him, it was taught to the entire defensive tackle group. But he said he was the only one that had the strength, size, athleticism that they felt could comfortably do it. And he's the only one I think here that I've seen do it. We'll see when Aleem comes back. Maybe Aleem could do it. Yeah. But I just thought that
Reader from time to time.
Maybe,
we'll do it.
But it's just some quick sidebar that I wanted to mention on the podcast because I thought it was cool that he's doing this thing that I don't think a lot of other defensive tackles can do as consistently as he can. And it's tied into your point about the linebackers.
There we go. Dude, peanut butter and jelly over here.
The
Kansas City Chiefs offense still having a pretty good year. Like, despite the struggles that they've had, Rashee Rice has not played. He's still suspended. The Lions caught a little bit of a break on that front because this is the final week of his suspension coming up. Xavier Worthy, he was out for a couple games. He picked up a little something in that game, or I don't know.
The opener,
I don't remember if he came back. No, it was a shoulder injury.
Last game.
But in this last game, he picked up a little. I think it might have been like an ankle injury or something like that. But I think he ultimately. Actually, I'm not going to say what I think he did because I don't know.
Andy Reid said today that everyone on the active roster is practicing.
Okay, so there you go. So, this is still a really good offense. They're 8th in total offense, 361 yards per game, 12th in scoring, 25 points per game, 11th in rushing, 9th in passing, so they're well balanced. Tied for 11th on third down and tied for 2nd in giveaways. So this is not a team that is going to give you many opportunities to beat them. And like Dan Campbell said earlier in the week, they are going to maximize the opportunities that you give them.
Right, and this is a defense that has created turnovers in the past week. So that's another a movable object needs some whatever the saying, something forced. Whatever.
Do you want to touch on? I mean, we did kind of touch on the cornerbacks, I guess, at the top of the show.
Just that I think that the Chiefs' speed is going to test what this new look cornerback room is going to be able to do. I mean, obviously Worthy is the top speed guy in that offense. But Hollywood Brown, I think, is as fast as anyone, and Tyquan Thornton, I think, is right up there as well. They have three guys that's like real, like up there with the best of them in the NFL, and just straight line downfield speed.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some picks for the week, shall we?
We shall.
All right, first up, we got the Lions plus 2.5 at the Kansas City Chiefs. What do you got?
I'm going to pick the Lions. I don't want to say want to. I never want to pick or against the Lions. I initially was going to go with the Chiefs because of that linebacker versus offensive line thing. I do think that's real and potentially an issue, but I'm not going to bet against these Lions after the past month.
I'm also going with the Lions for a similar reason. I also think that Kansas City might be experiencing some regression to the mean a little bit. They were 10-0 in these games, these one-score games last year. This year they're 0-3. That is really not an indicator of future performance. But I do just think, like, as a team, like that's just, I fully expect them to be there at the end, but I haven't seen them put it all together yet. They made some pretty egregious mistakes in that Chiefs or in the Jaguars game on Monday night, whether it be the goal line interception or whether it be Chris Jones not hustling to tackle Trevor Lawrence as he runs into the end zone for the game-winning score. I just feel like the Lions are playing better football right now, and I expect that to continue.
Yeah, that was crazy. That ending, I can't believe that happened. I think I sent this TikTok to you. I forget who it is. I wish I could probably pull it up real quick and give this person credit. But they were imitating being Dan Campbell having a conversation with Jared Goff. And it's like Jared Goff lying at home at night and Dan Campbell like popping up out of nowhere, like, "Hey Jared." And Jared's like, "How'd you get in my house?" And Dan's like, "Not important." And he was like, "Could you lay on the ground, pretend to fall, get back up, and then run into the end zone?" And Jared's like, "What are you talking about, dude?" Yeah, so I thought that was funny. I probably can't pull it up quickly. I'm picking the Lions. You're picking the Lions.
Packers minus 14.5 against the Bengals. I'm going to go with the Bengals. Even though last week, what I called the stinky Bengals, probably a little bit too mean. They still have Jamar Chase, D. Higgins, all those guys. But, this team is not good. That being said, they did just trade for Joe Flacco. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to help at all let me be clear. That was the most. I saw that trade come across the line, and I thought to myself, that's not going to do anything. That being said, first game, Joe Flacco. I think I might do something in this first game. I'm gonna, the man's got a little seasoning. He's already beaten the Packers this season, which is more than Jake Browning can say. And so I don't know. I don't think that the Bengals are going to come anywhere close to winning this game, but I could see them covering 14.5.
Yeah, I just think 14.5 is a lot of points to give up. That's why I'm picking the Bengals as well.
Bears plus 4.5 at the Commanders. I'm going with the Commanders. They're kind of starting to get a little bit healthier, at least with their quarterback right now, and they look pretty good despite the fact that he missed a couple weeks. So I just think the Commanders are a better all-around team, but at the same time, Bears coming off a bye. So,
We're in agreement, 3 for 3. I'm also going Commanders.
And the Vikings are also on a bye this week. Who's your best bet of the week? By the way, I just want to say, all of this week's games, I was going through the list, doing the picks. I feel like all of this week's games, the correct team is favored, but not by nearly enough. And I know, I think a lot of times we tend to think that teams are going to be favored by more than they are. And you're like, oh, well, that team is better. Of course they're going to cover 6.5. But it's a lot of teams who I would expect to be 6.5 point favorites, and they're only 2.5, 3.5 point favorites. The Chargers minus 4.5 at the Dolphins. That makes no sense. Patriots fresh off a big win over the New England over the Buffalo Bills. They're minus 3.5 at the Saints, who are terrible. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But at the same time, because that spread is so low and the favorite seems so obvious, I have a tough time making my picks because I felt like Vegas is trying to trick me, get in my head.
What do you know?
Yeah, exactly.
My best bet was Bills minus 3.5 at Falcons. I said that after the Packers lost to the Browns when we were picking them for that Cowboys game, I said Packers because I was like, angry Packers.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work that time. I'm making that bet again. Angry Bills after losing that game in primetime to the Patriots. So I think they go into Atlanta and win by more than 3.5.
All right. I'm going Chargers minus 4.5 against the Dolphins. Come at me, Vegas. I'm not scared of you.
That was my first pick.
That line makes no sense to me.
That was my first
whatsoever.
Pick, and I almost wanted to make that my best bet as well. That would have meant we were 4
but
for
then
4
we'd be too locked in.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, we're locked in all the time, but sometimes, is there a point of diminishing returns?
For sure. Yeah,
I'm willing to find out. If you want to change it, I'm all for it. But
yeah.
I will never shy away from being locked in. All right, we're doing a blind ranking to close the show. It's a little something fun that we do at the end of every episode here, where one of us gives each other 5 things to rank blindly. Last week it was
Bengals pass catcher or receivers of all time.
Week before that it was Browns quarterback.
And I almost had him. I was close to having him not put Ochocinco at 1, but he found a way.
We're going to Kansas City this week, and I think I have a list of 5 things you're not going to want to rank at all.
I know what this is going to be. I can. It's barbecue food.
These are barbecue items that you would be willing to eat.
That should count as a point for me guessing it.
There's no point system.
Go ahead.
Points of what?
Yeah, you're right.
All right, first up, we got brisket. Jeez. We'll throw burnt ends in this category too. You can have either or.
I don't know what a burnt end is.
So it's when you take the brisket, part of the brisket, at the end, I'm pretty sure. I don't have a smoker, so I don't, I'm going to get a little bit of this wrong. But you take part of the brisket and you cut it up into cubes, and then you cover it in barbecue sauce. Just stick with the brisket. Oh,
jeez. And again, like you said.
Now, actually, Richard was offered brisket here last year, and he climbed up on a table in a fetal position.
No, that's
because he didn't want to eat it.
That's exaggerative. So I'm not gonna like a lot of these things. There's probably 2 or 3 barbecue foods that I like. So I don't know. I'm sure you're gonna throw in at least one. Mac and cheese is probably coming.
No sides, all meats.
Oh, jeez. For those that aren't fully into the lore, I'm an extremely picky eater. The only meat that I have is chicken breast. That's the only one. That's the only kind that I like. That said, brisket 1 through 5, I'm gonna put it at 4.
Really?
Yeah.
It's really scary.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Next up, we have pulled pork.
Oh, that's jeez.
Now, you like pork. You eat bacon.
I do.
At games.
I do, but that's bacon.
It's about the only thing that Rich will eat at a game. Rich will eat bacon. Rich will eat mac and cheese. He'll eat potatoes, depending on how they're cooked. He will eat white rice. He will eat...
I eat yellow rice as well.
And yellow rice. He will eat breadsticks
Mhm.
and cheese pizza. I think that about covers it.
Probably.
Chicken tenders.
I'm going to put pulled pork at 3, I guess.
Better than brisket.
I guess. I don't know.
Less scary than brisket.
There's no right answer for this list.
Okay. Next up, we have sausage.
Jeez. 5.
You disgust me. You disappoint me. I'm not even mad. I'm just disappointed.
My 1 and 2 spots are open. I don't even know what you're going to say.
We'll go turkey. Smoked turkey.
It's got to be 1 because I said that I only eat chicken breast. I do. Shout out to my grandma during Thanksgiving. She makes me my own little special chicken
what
for Thanksgiving.
What is it? So you won't even eat the Thanksgiving turkey?
But shout out to my family for being accommodating.
They don't want to do that, by the way.
But
it's a burden on them.
If I go someplace else and I don't have my little special meal on the side, I will eat a little bit of turkey. So I can do it. Which basically my qualification for number 1 is I can do it.
Yeah.
So
that leaves us with ribs. Ribs is in your number 2.
No, oh jeez.
Now that's a double whammy because not only is it beef, but it's beef with a bone.
Yeah, and I got to pick it up. My hands get messy. Jeez. There's literally turkey 1, 2 through 5. I wasn't going to be happy in any order that I put it in.
Yeah. How would you like? I'm trying to think. Like, what would you rather do than eat brisket, for example? What would you rather do than eat jalapeno cheddar sausage? Like, if I said you have to eat this, or you can offer me a replacement.
What if we put what if you put a monetary value on it? Like, I feel like that's easier.
Or like, would you run 5 miles to avoid eating a sausage?
Are we talking 1 bite, or are we talking like a meal? Like,
let's say half a sausage, half a cheddar jalapeno. We're on it's the jalapeno episode.
Is there a time limit for the miles, or is it just that I just gotta travel that distance
in one go?
Like no, yeah.
How many miles would you run to avoid eating half a sausage?
Oh, man, probably like 3.
3.
Yeah.
You wouldn't run 5?
I don't know. That's a lot. I think I could do a 5K and feel okay at the end of it. If I did a 5 miles, I feel like I'd be like, oof.
Okay. How many steps would you take on it? Like, let's say you walk into a room and it's covered in Legos. How many steps would you be willing to take before, like, 2 steps or sausage?
2 steps, not even a question.
10 steps?
10 steps.
15 steps on Legos?
Yeah. I'll jump on Legos instead of
barefoot.
Sure.
25?
Well, I mean, of course, there's going to be some limit.
I'm trying to find it for the people.
But I feel like at that point, it's like,
all right,
you've already stepped up. What's the 26th step when you've already got 25?
That's true. I'm trying to think of like, okay, let's do a dollar amount.
Okay.
What 1 full piece of cheddar jalapeno sausage?
Can you what are we talking?
It's like,
goodness gracious.
I mean, it's the size of a sausage, dude. I don't know.
I don't know.
Would you pay $50?
Like, eat the whole thing for $50?
Yeah, eat the whole thing or pay me $50.
Oh, that's an interesting variable. Man, that's really hard. Like, I think that is the line. $50 is the line.
Not 60?
No.
So you wouldn't do it for 60?
I don't know. I'm confused, and I don't want to do any of this.
All right, we'll call it 50. I think that should do it for this week's episode. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. We had a great time on today's episode. We're recording in person now, so shout out to our wonderful bosses over at the Detroit News who have given us the equipment to be able to do this in person. I think it's really going to help the show. And if that's the case, well, then you better be out there rate, reviewing, and subscribing. If you like what you're hearing, if you like hanging out with us, we'd really appreciate it. It would really help us grow. Richard, anything to say to the people before we tell them goodbye for the weekend?
No, I don't think so. Don't enjoy some barbecue, actually.
We'll talk to you guys later.